In this session, we're going to talk about the fourth and the fifth ingredient in the training scale. And I would like to introduce to you the head trainer at East Hill Farm. This is Megan Maurice, and she's going to be my demo rider. And this gorgeous creature here, this beautiful little paint, if you can imagine, her name is Twinkie, and you can see by her color that that's absolutely a perfect name for her. She's got all this white, fluffy, foamy stuff, just like a Twinkie. So she's going to be our demo horse for the fourth and fifth ingredient in the training scale, impulsion and straightness. So I want to talk about impulsion first, because I think that there's a lot of confusion with people between impulsion and going forward. People don't understand why impulsion is so far up the training scale. They think, well, I'm supposed to ride my horse forward and straight, forward and straight. Why isn't impulsion right at the beginning? I need to go, go, go. First of all, you have to understand the difference between impulsion and going forward. Let me discuss forward first. Forward is a direction, the direction you go. You're covering ground in a forward way. Also, if you remember from our session on the use of the aids, forward is a mental thing. The horse must be thinking forward. And so the horse must be thinking forward and traveling in a straightforward direction as opposed to sideways, which is also a direction, in all three gaits. Impulsion is quite a bit more sophisticated. Impulsion refers to thrust, power, an elastic spring which starts from the hind legs and carries the horse up off the ground. So think about it. There's no up off the ground in the walk because there's no springing off the ground. There's no period of suspension in the walk. So we can't have impulsion in the walk, although we can go forward in the walk as we should. So we have to have a period of suspension in order to have impulsion. So we have impulsion in the trot and we have impulsion in the canter. And so I want you also to think that impulsion is something that we add by increments. And how do you know how much impulsion to ask for? It depends on the first three ingredients in the training scale, and that's why we do things in that order. So just think, to make the word impulsion less dressage-y sounding, think of the word impulsion as meaning more, M-O-R-E, more. Whatever you have in terms of the first three ingredients in the training scale, which are rhythm, suppleness, and connection, remember your round horse, your horse that's on the bit, and you ask for impulsion, you're going to get more of whatever you have when you ask for impulsion. So let's take worst case scenario. You have a horse that's irregular in the rhythm, stiff and rigid like a board, which we know you can be sometimes, and against the hand, above the bit. And you try to add impulsion, you try to add more. You're going to have more irregularity, more stiffness and rigidity, and more hollowness and more against the hand. So you have to be absolutely sure that you like those first three ingredients in the training scale before you add more. And we don't just blast and add a ton of more. We do it in increments. We add a little bit more thrust, a little bit more power from the hind legs, and then we check those first three ingredients in the training scale. And if all is well, we dare to add a little bit more power. As soon as we get to the point that we lose any of those three ingredients, first three ingredients in the training scale, then just a notch at a time decrease the impulsion until you can have those first three ingredients in the training scale in order. So Megan and Twinkie are going to demonstrate that. So first we're going to go in a sub-power trot. And in that sub-power trot, we're going to look at those first three ingredients in the training scale. So just go in a circle somewhere, and we'll go in a rising trot once you get organized here. And I've asked Megan to show us this first trot with a horse that does not have the first three ingredients in the training scale. Good, that's perfect. Perfect. Circle a little bit down this way. So you can see that the horse is not supple looking, that she looks pretty rigid through her body, and obviously she's not connected lifted. She's hollow. She's above the bit. You can see the big under muscle underneath her neck, and her back is low. So because we don't have two of the first three ingredients in the training scale, we would not add power to this trot. And now, Megan, with your connecting aids, with your connecting half halt, ask Twinkie to come a little rounder. Awesome. Yep. There you go. Perfect. Yep. So you see the difference here. So now we run through our little checklist. We're still in our sub-power trot, but we have a horse that's regular in the rhythm, looking quite a bit more supple, and a horse that's round. So ever so carefully, Megan's going to ask for a little bit more impulsion. And we'll see as she adds a little more power, excellent, to the trot if we still have those first three ingredients in the training scale. And we do. We have rhythm, we have suppleness, and we have connection. So let's see if we can add a hair more impulsion. Remember, we do this by degree, by stages. And we add the impulsion, you remember from our ABCs, from the inner leg. That gives you activity within the gait you're in. That was quite nice. She dealt with that fairly well. Yep. Yep, there. Okay, now here you saw when I asked by my cluck for Twinkie to have a little bit more impulsion, there was some resistance. She dropped her back, she raised her neck. So I'm just going to ask Megan to just drop the impulsion level down a notch. There. Because we need to know, perfect, that we have the first three ingredients in the training scale. Yep. Good. Rhythm, suppleness, contact. So let's try it again. Let's try to bump up the impulsion level a notch. So carefully add a little more power. Good. Super. Good. So she added more power, and this time Twinkie was able to cope with the extra power. So now you can see that we have quite a bit more impulsion than we did on that first trot. But this time you're going to add a little more impulsion, and you're going to show that she can't cope with it. So when you're ready, add more power. And beautiful. So you can see that Megan added more power from her inner leg, and you can walk for a second. She added more power from her inner leg, and Twinkie said, whoa, that much power I can't handle right now. So she became rigid through her body, and she came above the bit. So we lost two of the first three ingredients in the training scale, and therefore we have to back off that extra degree of impulsion. So you see, you can slide with your impulsion, a little bit more impulsion, a little bit less impulsion, but your criterion to decide what level of impulsion, you can bring her up here, what level of impulsion to ride her at depends on whether or not you have those first three ingredients in the training scale. And so that's why impulsion is number 4 and not number 1. It's a different thing than forward. Remember, forward is the expression of forward, a direction covering ground, and it's also a mental thing. Impulsion is different. It's power, it's thrust. There has to be a spring off the ground. So we only have that impulsion we only ask for the impulsion in the trot and in the canter, and every time we bump the horse up a notch in the impulsion level, we check those first three ingredients in the training scale. So now we're going to go on to the 5th ingredient in the training scale, which is straightness. Now I'm going to give you the dictionary definition of straightness. The dictionary definition of straightness says, when a horse is straight, their spine directly overlaps the line of travel with the hind feet following directly in the tracks of the forefeet. Do you see that, Twinkie? Okay, now that's the dictionary definition. I'm going to sort of break that into 2 parts, like an A and a B, so that you really understand that. But if you think about the fact, the first part of that definition, that the horse's spine directly overlaps the line of travel, that means that straightness actually means 2 things. It means that on lines the horse is straight, like the long side and diagonals and center lines, but on circles and corners and curves it means bent. So a straight horse can be bent, and a straight horse can be straight through the spine. And that's why I want to break the definition down a little bit for you into 2 kinds of straightness. One is what I call axis straightness, referring to the horse's spine, and the second is what I call leg straightness, the position of the horse's legs. So When we think about axis straightness, what I want you to think about as far as the horse's spine directly overlapping the line of travel is that when a horse is axis straight, basically the horse's shoulders, here I'll come on this side. Hello, you want to show us how straight you are? The horse's shoulders are directly in front of the rider's hips and directly in front of the horse's hips. So that's all you have to think about for axis straightness. Shoulders lined up in front of your hips and in front of the horse's hips. Now, as far as axis straightness is concerned, particularly on corners and circles and curves, riders forget that horses are more flexible in the neck than they are through the rest of the body. And so they have a tendency to overbend the neck to the inside. And if you do that, what will happen is the shoulders of the horse will pop out. And if they pop to the outside of the circle, they're no longer in front of your hips or her hips. That's a very common mistake that riders make. And you saw a little bit of that in my session on the outside rein. But we're going to review that because it's such an important concept. So we had a little technical interference from our kitty. So that's a horse farm for you. Cats and dogs, you've seen it all. Okay, so go in a circle at R. And you're going to go in a small circle so we can sort of exaggerate the problem. And what Megan is going to do is overbend there you go, just do a full circle like that, overbending the neck to the inside. And I want you guys to watch the left shoulder of the pony. You can see, even though she's exaggerating this, a lot of people do this to a slight degree. And when the neck is bent to the inside, the shoulder's to the left, and it's not in front of her hips or the horse's hips. Now the next time she comes around, she's going to make the horse axis straight by doing a -1 flexion, which you know means you're going to turn the key in the lock with the left wrist and just barely position the horse's face there. That was perfect. You saw the shoulders slide to the right. Just barely position the horse's face to the left, to the outside, 1 inch to the outside. And even though she should be flexed to the inside on a circle, it would be better as you work on the straightness of the axis to have the horse in counterflexion and still have the shoulders lined up directly in front of the hips than to have the horse flex to the inside and then also overbending the neck so you lose control of the shoulder. That's very good in the straightness department. Do one other nice circle like that in counterflexion with the shoulders straight. And then as you're coming toward the camera again, make the mistake of overbending her neck to the inside so everybody can see that the shoulders falling out to the left. So now she's absolutely straight in counterflexion. Now pull on the right rein and watch how, very good. You see how the shoulders fell out to the left? Hold her in that position till you're coming toward the camera again. And then you will counterflex, and I want you all to watch how the shoulders slide over to the right so that once again, go ahead, counterflex starting. Good. There, that was a beautiful example of the shoulders sliding to the right. Beautiful. And just walk that circle in counterflexion. Good. Beautiful. Good. And then let her go on a long rein and come up here again. So that's what I'm referring to with axis straightness. And yes, we were exaggerating the degree that the horse was bent in the neck, but even if the neck is just a hair overbent to the inside so that the spine is not overlapping the line of travel and the shoulders falling out a little bit, you don't have absolute straightness. So it's a really simple thing to check to counterflex the horse with your little turn of the key. Ask for the face to be 1 inch to the inside of our neutral position and see if the shoulders slide back over in front of your hips and in front of the horse's hips. And like I said, obviously, and you know this, it's correct if you're circling or going through a corner or a serpentine or whatever, that the horse should be flexed at the pole and also bent through the body in the direction that they're going. However, when we're working on a horse that isn't axis straight, they tend to pop the shoulder in one direction. It's better, just in training, not in competition, it's better for the training of the horse to temporarily stay in that counterflexion and go all the way around the arena, through corners, through circles, whatever, in counterflexion until both you and the horse know this feeling of axis straightness so well. You can really feel the shoulders lined up in front of your hips and the horse's hips. You know the feeling so well that when you dare go back to true flexion, if you feel those shoulders slide out at all, you know that you're not keeping the shoulders in line with your hips and the horse's hips. So eventually, from counterflexion going to true flexion, flexing in the direction you're going, the shoulders should feel like they're staying in the same spot. Okay, so that's the first part of straightness, axis straightness. The second part I call leg straightness. And the reason I like to divide those two things is that when I'm talking about leg straightness, going back to that dictionary definition of straightness, which is the hind feet following directly in the tracks of the fore feet. Let's see if we can get her to just move her right hind up, just a hair. Ho. Good. Whoops. One more. And if she doesn't want to, that's okay, but try. Yep, they are perfect. Okay, perfect. Okay. Might be hard for you to see, but this is broadside because it's broadside to you. But the reason it's difficult to have the hind feet following directly in the tracks of the forefeet with most horses is that if you look at a horse in the front, they're built like a triangle, narrow in the shoulders with the front feet fairly wide apart. You look at the back of the horse and it's like an upside down triangle, wide in the hips with the hind feet a little bit closer together than the front feet. So they're like a normal triangle in front and an upside down triangle behind. So it's fairly difficult to get a horse to step directly with its hind feet following in the tracks of the front feet. So therefore, when we ride a straight horse, we ride in what's called first position, which is not a ballet term. Well, it is a ballet term, but that's not exactly what we're talking about. And I'm going to explain first position in a couple different ways to you. If you think about shoulder in, if I were doing left shoulder in, I would move those shoulders to the left, and the horse would be on 3 tracks with the right foreleg and left hind in the same track. If you think about that as the maximum angle you would ask for from your horse, think of first position as 1/100th of a shoulder in. That's how tiny it is. Another way to think about it is if I'm coming towards you and I'm tracking to the left, if I were in first position, you would not be able to see my outside or right hind leg because it would be directly hidden behind my right foreleg. But because the hind feet are closer together, you would see half a hoof's width of my left hind leg stepping to the inside of the left foreleg. That's first position. Now we need to differentiate between first position and shoulder fore and shoulder in. First position is simply a straight horse, and you want to ride your horse in first position because it teaches the horse baby engagement of the inside hind leg. And the truth is, if you're not riding your young horse in first position in the walk and in the trot, the horse is really actually crooked, even though you can't really see it. But the horse is crooked, and the first time you will see it is when you go to canter, because the horse has not learned the mechanics of bending the joints of the inside hind leg, the horse will drift the hindquarters to the inside and canter with the haunches drifting to the inside because they don't know the mechanics of bending the joints of that hind leg. So we teach baby engagement of that inside hind leg through first position. Also, in first position, with that inside hind leg tucked just a half a hoof's width, 2 inches about, to the inside of the inside foreleg, every step the horse takes, the horse has to bear weight on that hind leg, and that makes that leg stronger. And of course, we do it in both directions, so we make both hind legs equally strong. If the horse is drifting with the hindquarters to the inside, they're unloading this leg, and this leg is getting weaker while the other one is getting stronger, and then you run into problems down the road, unevenness and lengthenings, difficulty doing the lateral work in one direction as opposed to the other. So you should always strive to ride your horse in first position. It's not an exercise, it's simply a straight horse. As opposed to shoulder fore, this is left shoulder fore, which is half of a shoulder in, or shoulder in, which are straightening exercises. We always straighten the horse by bringing the shoulders in front of the inside hind leg. We never straighten the horse by pushing the hind legs out behind the shoulders. So shoulder 4 and shoulder in are great straightening exercises, but first position is simply a straight horse. Now the thing about first position, it's sort of like flexion left and flexion right. It's such a tiny little thing, and sometimes, as you know, it's more difficult to do the subtle things than it is to do the big things. So when you first start first position, you either need a ground person to tell you that's a little bit too much positioning, that's not enough, or the positioning is varying, or whatever, until you really develop the feeling of that inside hind leg stepping a half a hoof's width to the inside of the inside foreleg. And then you just want to be able to do that in the traveling walk, the traveling trot, the traveling canter. Once you can do that, you can add some complications, such as doing transitions up and down in first position. And usually the down transition isn't too hard. But on the up transition, let's say you were going trot, walk, and then trot again, on the up transition, a lot of times the horse likes to unload and put the haunches to the inside. So first we're just going to walk around in first position, see if we can identify the spot. So she's tracking to the right, and she's just going to tuck that right hind leg a hair. That's a little bit too much. That's shoulder 4. There you go. A hair to the perfect, to the inside of the inside hind leg. And you see, this is great, Megan, because Twinkie, that's good, that's good. Twinkie is trying to unload her right hind leg here and there, and you could see because she came off the track once, and another time she wiggle wormed her hindquarters to the inside. Very good, that's perfect, perfect, perfect. This is very good first position. Can you try that on the center line, which will be a little harder for her, but you'll be coming straight at the camera. So the same thing, still a right first position. You had most of that long side. Good, that's it. That's it. Whoops. Good, good. I'm trying not to get in the way of the camera, but I still want to be able to see what you're doing. It's looking good though, looking very good. Perfect, perfect. So you guys all look at the right hind leg. That's perfect. It's a hair too much there. Good. Good. You see a half a hoof's width. Good. Turn right. That was lovely. A half a hoof's width of the right hind leg to the inside of the right foreleg. And then if you can, try that first position in the trot down the long side and see if you can also do that on the center line. And I'll get behind you. Good. And you know, people, when you're riding with the hollow side of the horse on the inside, sometimes it's harder to get first position. So if you have to ride in counterflexion to have control of the shoulders, so that you can bring the shoulders just that hair to the right in front of the right hind leg, it's okay to do that. That looked very nice on the turn. I'm going to get, yeah, good, perfect. I'm going to get behind you so I can see for sure. Just a hair more. Shoulders to the right, a hair more. Too much. Those were good corrections though. Try it again. Good. Looks good. Yeah, and if she comes off the track because she's trying to unload the right hind leg, you give her just a little bump. Very good. That looks super. You give a little bump with your inner leg if she tries to come off the track. Come down the center line again. And you see she's riding sub-power because we know we can't add too much impulsion for Twinkie. Good. 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 Perfect. 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 Whoops. Hair unloading there, then it's perfect again. Perfect. 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 Well done, Megan. That was super. Now on the long sides, try for 3 or 4 steps to the walk and back to the trot again. We're going to add a complication, a transition. And so she has to be very aware with her inner leg, very good, that when she goes back to the trot, good, that her inside leg keeps Twinkie's right hind tucked between the front legs. Good. Stay on the long side. Good. Let her nose be a little more forward. Yep. Yep. Perfect. Good. Nice first position through the corner. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Down transition in first position. Perfect. And inner leg ready. Perfect. Oh, then she unloaded there for 2 strides. There, and you fixed it. Whoops, and she unloaded. That's great. This is normal. This is important for people to see that if you don't consciously ride in first position, the horse is going to unload that inside hind leg. Good. Good. Yep, well done. That made her bend the joints of her inside hind leg. That's fine. And down transition to the walk and long rein and bring her up here. That was super. You got to see a lot of the things that the horse will do to evade that baby engagement of the inside hind leg. But it's important that we teach the horse to go in first position so that you lay a foundation for your collected work down the road. Now, I do want to mention, again, that if you think about first position as 1/100th of a shoulder in, understand that the aids are basically the same as your shoulder in aids. Your weight's on your inside seat bone, your inner leg is on the girth, your outside leg is barely behind the girth because we're not bringing the shoulders in that much, but we lead the shoulders to the inside over that inside hind leg by using the 2 arms as a unit and bringing them in this direction because we were going right, bringing the shoulders to the right. Now, a couple of times when she said, ooh, I don't want to bend the joints of my inside hind leg, she showed that a couple of different ways. One time, she drifted off the track toward the inside of the arena. And then the correction, because she's opening the joints of the inside hind leg, is that Megan had to use a little more inner leg to say, no, bend your inside hind leg, stay on the track. A couple of times she stayed on the track, but she also avoided the bending of the joints of her right hind leg by ever so slightly putting her hindquarters over to the right. And once again, the correction is the same. It's the hindquarters, the engagement of the inside hind leg, that's the issue, so we fix it with the inner leg. But basically, and this is 1/100th, it's not a big thing, the aids for first position are the same as the aids for shoulder in. And once again, if you're riding with the hollow side of the horse on the inside, so that you try, when you try to bring the shoulders to the inside, all you get is head and neck in, you can practice first position in counter flexion. So if you want to do left first position, turn your right wrist, get -1 flexion to the right, then lead the shoulders to the left, a little bit in front of that left hind leg. So that's our discussion of the 4th and 5th ingredient in the training scale. Impulsion and 2 kinds of straightness. Axis straightness, which refers to the shoulders being directly in front of the rider's hips and the horse's hips, and first position, which refers to leg straightness, where that inside hind leg of the horse is tucked just a hair to the inside of the inside foreleg, so we see half a hoof's width to the inside of the inside foreleg. So, Twinkie and Megan, thank you very much. Super demo.